Hey, this is Justin from the Decilium Foundation. I want to talk to you a little bit about what it means to be a reverse crypto startup. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, and I think it's important to emphasize the differences between us and other crypto startups. So, other crypto startups like to begin their journey by announcing a goal, having a pitch deck, and then trying to capitalize as security. And then after they usually to accomplish that, they generate something called a white paper, and they might generate some proposals and raise some investment money and build a team. After a team's built, they look for market opportunities and partnerships. They try to restructure their business to be attractive to potential users. They create a draft, a draft service layer. They might tokenize their program and actually push parts of it to the blockchain in the form of smart contracts, while other pieces might sit on Web 2.0 technology on systems like AWS and Google Cloud. I would say almost 100% of all platforms have a large degree of hosting on Web 2.0 platforms. And then usually at this point, if you look at systems like Uniswap, you look at USDT, you look at some of the big success stories, you see that over time, the Web 2.0 parts start to be influenced by the capital backers, and they start to become centralized. And this can be for various reasons. And you also see a lot of financialization, a lot of speculation on top of these assets. Then after that point, and only after that point, after all this speculation is happening, all this market pressure is happening, then you start seeing tangible, releasable, pieces of code and actually usable technology. And many times that technology is laden with counterproductive mechanisms. Algorithmic financial systems. You have charters that have been abandoned. You have commitments to become decentralized autonomous organizations abandoned. And you see a lot of problems sort of pop up at that technology layer. And then there's sort of a cycle where the actual hardcore Web3 or crypto users, people who are interested in self-custody and protection from these sort of monopolistic capitalist forces, you see them sort of these protocols buckle under this wave of disappointment, and then you see the prices crash. And this is kind of a cycle that I see over and over and over again, and quite frankly, I'm sick of it. And back when I got into crypto around 2014, and when I was in the beginning of thinking about robotics, and I was thinking about distributed computation, I right away, and my beginning comes from thinkers like Noam Chomsky, Guy Standing, David Graeber. These are people that were foundational to my understanding of the world. So when I saw that the inception of all these protocols was a debt like agreement with monopolistic capital forces, I started thinking that this was really a backwards process. And I saw another process I wanted to follow, and it was actually the process of Bitcoin. What happened with Bitcoin was somebody was really frustrated with the banking sector, and they thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could share and transact without an intermediary? So someone invented a payment technology that facilitated exactly that. And then for several years, for a decade, they pushed for adoption. And I think there's something romantic about that. What I respected about Einstein was that he sat in a patent office and came up with most of his revolutionary ideas. And he sat there for more than 5 years, for 10 years, and really borrowed on all his experience and all his curiosities to build a technology, a belief, and a language around how to describe and function in the world more efficiently. And that is closer to the philosophy of what we're doing at Decilium. See, we did the process in reverse. We started by building prototypes. I started by going to university. I started by working with real people who wanted to host real websites. And I thought, what kind of system could exist that could allow people to host and share internet content without intermediaries? How would that work? And I built it. And I funded the building of it. I built, all of the early code of the 190,000 lines of code we have. I must have written over the last 7 years about 120,000 of it. And it was through trial and error. We threw out almost 60,000 lines of that code, and we're left with our 58,000 lines of code that we have today, or as of last year. We haven't done an analysis recently. And the process of actually trying to solve a real problem slowly over a decade, I believe that people try to skip that step. And then our attitude is like, okay, well, the next step is to get our mining technology and our tokenomics finished so that people have the proper economic incentives to actually lend services to the protocol. So when you want to host a website, somebody else is going to be incentivized to have a computer for you. And we're worried about the stability of that process, and we're worried about the community, and we're worried about the self-custody. Notice we're not talking about investment yet. We're not talking about mission statements. We're talking about working with real engineers and real content providers, real bloggers, and real people who want to run artificial intelligence training jobs. Mainly the two services are, hey, I want to load up a Docker container and run it, and hey, I want to post a little blog for my family or my shop. And I just don't think that these systems have to be owned and operated and custodied by centralized organizations. And I think that there's something beautiful about a decentralized internet. Point for now. There's nothing else there. And then only after all of those steps are passed, and only after we have community adoption, and only after people like the protocol and use it, is there a time when we might consider partnerships with investors. Now, why is that important? Because that's going to be the point when we already have proven and launched the network, we already have decentralized governance. And there's not, even for myself, there's no opportunity for me even to be greedy. Why? Because all the keys will be given away by that point, both legally and on a technology basis. We'll have the scaffolding in place to render this project truly open source and truly decentralized at every point in our journey. And then that means when the capital flows in at the end, just like in Bitcoin, it flows into a system where retail investors and other people all have the same incentives. And just like in Bitcoin, there's a mining reward, but there's no company to invest in. We're all doing this together. And I think that that is the spirit of a true crypto technology, is laying the foundation and laying the structure, the necessary structure for true collaboration in a game theoretic sense, not trying to raise a bunch of speculative capital and then feeling that those debts are being called in and that your reputation's on the line, and you are now beholden to corporate influences that might be antithetical to your founding principles. Anyway, so that's why I say we're a reverse crypto startup. That's why I say the foundation is primary and community is primary, because, and I guess it's hard to talk about these things because most crypto startups say these highfalutin statements about who they are. I think in our case, because I've been working for 7 years and many of the staff have been working on this for 5+ years, and struggling to bring this to market, in a way that's aligned with our philosophies, I feel we are truly different, and we have been doing this for a long time. And luckily, because the industry is growing, we all have gainful employment alongside this project. So there's no perverse incentive structure for us. We do this because we love it, and we want to see the world change on a fundamental level. We want to see people able to custody and share their own information. And this is what a reverse crypto startup looks like. And I think in the next 5-10 years, because it takes a long time to build these things, we're going to see more reverse crypto startups. We're going to see more people who just built something and it took them 5 or 7 years and then they launch it. And, in reality, when you think about the explosion of the crypto industry, it was never going to be the quick projects that came out within 24 months that were going to change the industry. It was always going to be the projects that come out 5 or 10 years after. Why? Because to build a good, representative, decentralized, autonomous organization, it takes a long time. And the way capital flows today, you can't speed up that process without becoming perversely beholden to the wrong kind of benefactors. That's why we're different. We're going to get there eventually. We're not going to launch this year completely. We might launch in 2023, but it could even be 2024. But the point is, when we do have our massive public launch, there will be no speculative investment behind us, and we'll be supported by the community every step of the way. That's a true crypto startup. And quite frankly, what we call reverse should be the sort of the normal.